And we are live. Well, we are live together here with like, I don't know how many people, 100 something. There were like 150 people now. Last week we reached 500 again. This is a bit too much. No pressure, Pablo, no pressure. Here we are. Once again, live. It's 9 p.m. in Amsterdam. It's very hot in here. It's summer has come to the city. Many features have come to the city. It was a crazy week. I say this every week, but I think this is the case with the Cold Quest, where so many things going on. There is a new, well, not a new, but a revamped 2.0 3D cursor in Blender. That will break the internet. But there's actually something coming this week that is gonna break the internet even more. What else? There is a new drawing types in the Armature. Then there is, I don't know, so many things. We're gonna go through them, through all of this new stuff. There has been a new subscriber. So if you're new to this channel, welcome. We do this every week. We get together, we chat about Blender, what happens in Blender today. My name is Pablo Vasquez. I am working right now on the Code Quest together with other developers and designers, making Blender the 2.8 quest, this thing, trying new stuff. We're gonna compile Blender here. We're gonna try them, and you can leave us questions too. You can just add Blender today, and it's gonna appear in the chat window a bit more highlighted, so that way I can see it better. So when the time comes, more towards the end of the show, we're gonna be answering some of the questions. And today I'm actually sponsoring. No, it's not a sponsor. It's just, I'm just happy because the drawing that I did, the little rocket, now has a t-shirt, a 2.8 t-shirt. It's a Code Quest t-shirt. It's some gear that we made for the team. But would you, if you're interested in this, maybe you can show up in the Blender store. It's not a sponsor thing. The Blender store, the 100% goes to Blender itself, so it's not a sponsor thing. But it would be fun though if it was. But it's even more fun is to go and see what's new in Blender. So let's get to it. Before continuing, I have a quick look at the chat. Everything is fine, please. Give me a thumbs up if you if everything goes fine. Just live streams, they're always surprises. So okay, everything is fine. Cool. Next, I'm gonna talk about the 3D cursor for 1 hour. Yes, no, of course not. I'm gonna talk about the 3D cursor for 1 hour. There's many things. There is there was a demo about hair in Eevee. And okay, thank you, Nicolas, for thumbs up, and thank you everyone that's saying that everything is fine. This girl broke the YouTubes not long ago, but okay, I'm not gonna show it right now. I'm gonna close this. Let's go back to the updates. What's new in Blender 2.8? Today is it's Monday, so like every Monday, I give her all the thumbs up. There has been updates. There is a meeting, developers meeting going on. So there you can find what's up. All the news, usually they are shared in the Blender 2.8 website in the part Stay Up to Date. Here you can follow the developers blog, the Blender dev YouTube channel, and the Twitter account. And in the mailing list, you can see, you can click here where it says more at the mailing list. I'm just showing this because like I get the news not from somewhere magic, just be there on IRC, and then we all can see the news right there. So Dalai posted the news here 14th, and these are the news from this morning. What's new in the Blender developer in development in general. There has been some updates regarding Summer of Code, but the main thing it's the Code Quest going on right now. The Summer of Code projects have been announced, but we're gonna cover that more towards the end. Here I want to focus on what's new in Blender 2.8. But these are the topics. If you're interested, is the Blender NPR line render improvement, Then there is the bevel modifier improvements, further development of cycles volume rendering. Yes. Hair shader for cycles is gonna be huge, because if cycle gets it, maybe Eevee can get it too. Right now they have to share now, they're buddies. So what else? Many light sampling. So this is an improvement for when you have multiple sources, light sources in cycles. This is all for cycles. So, but the NPR actually is related to something that might be coming this week. I heard a little bird told me, a little Eevee bird. It's like a Pokemon, or it's an Eevee Pokemon, Butterfree. Yes, told me that there, or a Pidgeot told me that there will be NPR news. Maybe there, I think I mentioned it in the past, but there is a node, there is a couple of nodes for splitting a shader into its color and other values, basically splitting the shader node into, for example, the color, and then from the color you can add a ramp and change it and then combine it into the shader again, so that way you get NPR, non-photorealistic rendering in Eevee native. Yes, I have to cheer for that. Sorry. Let's continue. So Blender 2.8. There has been some updates that hasn't been here on the blog itself, but if you follow the YouTube channel, Blender, youtube.com/Blender developers, you will find that somebody has been working. In this case, I've been making videos about other people's works. In this case, the 3D cursor, the armature displays that we're going to show here, the studio update, and the task force, but that was earlier last week. I already talked about it in the previous episode. But the two main things that I want to talk about here is the new 3D cursor, the armature display, and maybe the demo of the hair in Eevee. And there is a studio update too, but we were gonna make another one because the guys are working so hard now that they're on Friday. The team of Spring will come over to the north of Amsterdam, so that will be pretty interesting. And what you're gonna see now is just open Blender 2.8. I'm rocking Flatty Dark here, which is nearly completion. I've been tweaking it today, so I'm working hard on Flatty Dark. This is how it looks at the moment. So let's make this smaller. So this is Flatty Dark at the moment. If you're familiar with Flatty Light, it's the theme in Blender is because I made it, so I call this Flatty Dark, being very original about it. So some updates. The 3D cursor or the UI. Today there were some changes in the UI up here, and let's make this a bit bigger so you can all see it. 1.4. There you go. So there has been some changes in the UI, but let's first go with the 3D cursor. So what's new about the 3D cursor? Well, pretty much everything. When you click around this, not even black, it's like gray and white and red thingy, that it looks like a help icon, like the help icon. This is the 3D cursor. It has been in Blender since forever, and it's always been a point in space. So it was 3D. It was it has 3D coordinates, right? It's X, Y, and Z. So it was somewhere in space, and you could use it for as a pivot point. So for example, if I want to move something respective to this point specific in my mesh, I just put the 3D cursor, press the dot or the comma dot, depending on your keyboard, and then the pivot point will center around that point. So then you can move things around. Also, whenever you add a new object, it will go where the 3D cursor is. So a lot of people hate it because it uses the left click by default in Blender 2.7. In Blender 2.8, remember, you can change that left click behavior to be any tool with a new tool system here in the sidebar. So that is another problem you don't have to worry about. But now that you can position it anywhere, you will find out that in Blender 2.8, if you rotate the view, it becomes 3D. So you can actually see the points going around the, you can see it in 3D space. Why? Because the 3D cursor is now actually 3D. It's not only has location, but it also has rotation. So if you, for example, say you click on a surface, for example, let's make this wider. So if I click on this surface, the 3D cursor now is aligned there. So if I add, for example, a monkey, it will be added there, and I can use even that rotation as a pivot point. So to use it, you'll go to the, well, now it's in the top bar, but I'm not sure. This change was done recently. I'm not sure. Maybe this should go back to the because this is all related to the 3D view, but it still needs arrangement. But basically, you change your transform orientation from global, normal, like the ones we usually have, to 3D cursor. So now in the all the transformation tools will use that orientation from the 3D cursor, so that it's awesome. For example, if I move it up here, and then I want to move it on this, along this, I'm gonna select it along this surface, I should select the monkey, and then I can click the 3D cursor to position it here, and then I can just move it around. So that way you can make it very easy to add geometry, or to position things. If you want to add chimneys, for example, in this surface, I just click on the surface, and then there is a new tool which is like a proof of concept of this whole concept of adding geometry based on the rotation of your 3D cursor. So it has a little cube here. It's for adding cubes at the moment. So you click and drag, and basically all your geometry, well, it can fail, still under development, but basically you can start adding geometry with the transformation of your mesh. So okay, these ones went right, but some of them were still, let's see, let's click here and then click and drag. So I'm not using any, I'm only using one hand. Look, my one hand. It's you click on a surface, and then you just click drag, because I'm in the tool for adding cubes. Basically, it's a tool for you adding cubes. It doesn't have to use the 3D cursor by itself. You can just click on here, click on the little cube icon here. This is all gonna change. It's gonna be it's not that we are gonna have one option for every primitive, but this is an example of the power of this new tool system. So you just click, drag, and then you can create all your meshes, all your cubes, like a little cage. So it's a combination of the creating of a mesh, and also the scale, but the new scale cage. So that is pretty neat. That's something we didn't have in 2.7. In the future, so this is just the beginning. In the future, we will it's a bit dark. Let's put something bright on my face. There you go, here. In the future, you will be able to set the rotation manually of your 3D cursor, or you could also like snap, Shift S, snap to rotation, or you get the face, you select the face, and then you can snap the 3D cursor to the rotation of the normal of that face. So that way it will give you way more options to control. That will add even more power to this new 3D cursor. So I think it's a very good addition. Everything is a work in progress at the moment. It has rotation, you can move around. Some people still complain about the colors. I think it's funny. We experimented with a few things. Actually, William had another proposal for the 3D cursor. Like it was like a more like a pyramid shape, so you can show the direction. But I kind of was pushing for, let's skip how the old 3D cursor looks, but let's make it 3D. Let's make it, let's add the little, maybe the axis could have color. Actually, I was looking at the code for that, but I tried my best. I could only change the color of everything. I have to look into it again. But the axis could have the color of the axis, basically. So maybe red, green, and blue to specify which axis is the 3D cursor rotating. So maybe that would be a good addition, but I kind of wanted to have the old look of the 3D cursor because it's a classic. I think it's, I don't know, it's just nice, at least until Blender 3.0, and then in 3.0 we can get rid of it. But let's, I don't know, I kind of, you know, that that nostalgia thing, I'm gonna start crying. I better keep drinking. But yeah, it's a nostalgia thing. It's been there since forever. I'm 31. I've been using Blender for like 15, 16 years. So it's more than half my life. Let's continue before we start all crying and yes, no. Continue. This is, so this is all for the 3D cursor for the time being. Let's move on to more. Well, shall we? Okay, let's go and see the new Armature Drawing, which is pretty neat, I think. For that, I'm just gonna just add it here in the middle of the world, because there is something that is missing, is to see through the armature, see through them in the mesh. So I'm gonna just add an armature here. It's just a simple armature, and you'll see here that I'm gonna remove that. Wow, there is a the cage works here. Okay, the armature hasn't changed much. Now it just looks much nicer. Basically, it's anti-aliased. It's perfect. Look at the sphere. It can go for ages because it's using primitives now. It's not that it's super high detail, soft surfed. It's just that it just looks pretty because it's smarter than what we used to have. And also this there is a number. Let's add it to another model. Let's add the Puma model, and let's here. So I'm now playing with the demo. It's not my blend file. It's from, and I have it here, Nazar Noschenko. So Nazar Noschenko shared this awesome file that has mainly like the big show off was it was for developers to try and fix the hair drawing. So there's a video on the developers channel that is a show off of this. Actually, I made that video. I made the screencast. So it's a show off of this, but actually this is to show how wrong the shader is and how much better it could be. So this is actually this is to fix it. This file was to be fixed. So okay, let's go back to the other mode here. I'm gonna go to the shading mode. Maybe you can use random. Yes, just because we can. And there you go, an object overlap. So I opened this file because I wanted to add an armature in an object that has in a blend file that has more geometry in there. So let's add a new bone, just because I just like to see that you can actually see through the armatures now. That's awesome. This it's not only like pretty, but it's also functional. So when you move things around, especially when you have, let's make a few bones here, especially when you have, for example, 2 bones inside, for like, let's say I have this bone and then I duplicate it and then I subdivide it. So actually I have 2 bones inside and 1 bone here, and this is often done for when you're doing like IK chains or when you're doing foot rolls and all that kind of fancy rigging stuff. You usually do these kind of things, and there's an option, it's an overlay option that you can enable for transparent bones, so you can actually see through these bones. And that is fantastic because then you don't have to go and toggle between wireframe on and off all the time. You can just see them there, and this works for pretty much any drawing mode in the armatures. So right now what we're seeing is octahedral, but there is also stick mode, which makes it harder, of course. But there is B-bones, which also uses this style, and there's envelope, the fancy envelopes that now actually show you the radius of influence that they have in a more clear way. You can actually see through, and you can see where it begins, where it ends. You can see that it's a cylinder actually. Well, in 2.7 was a flat color, so you couldn't see when you had 2 bones, one after the other. You couldn't see where one began and one end that easily. Then we have wires, which is just the default one, the old wires from Blender 2.7. There is also a better way of drawing axes. So when your bone is selected, it will draw the axis now with the actual axis color, because I don't know if you remember, this is Blender 2.7. Ew, horrible. Let's I'm just kidding. I like it 2.7. You gave me so much. Look at that. Ew. So let's see how the envelopes looked. See, it's completely flat. So you will see them overlap, but you can't see where it ends. And there was also some drawings. You see, there was like some clipping when you were looking at certain angles. That's not happening anymore. It's just super smart now. Because otherwise you would think like, oh, it doesn't influence this area, right? But actually it did. It was just badly drawing. But now it does. And what I was actually mentioning about the axis is that this axis used to just be white, right? It's okay, it gets less on the way. But one problem that this axis had was that if the bone was scaled, like let's scale it in some axis, the letters will scale with the bone. So it was so weird. Like the axis and the scales will, like the letters will scale with the, yeah, it looks just weird. So in 2.8 that is solved. Actually, you can just scale the bone now, and the axis of the respective axis will scale, but not the letter itself. And it will show you with a nice color, so you can see that. That is pretty nice. All of this work has been done by Clément Foucault, the developer of Eevee. So it's pretty cool to see him working on this. Something else. Oh yes, I don't know if you can tell. It's very subtle, but it's there. It's the outer selection, the outline of the bone, which in 2.7 it was the whole bone was selected. So if let's make a few more bones. So for example, if I had these bones that belonged in a bone group that had, for example, a theme, in this case I'm making it, let's add a color, let's make it pink. Yes, beautiful. So if it was pink, your bones had the bone group that was, for example, pink. When you select it, you will lose the selection color, so you will be just lighter selected, but you wouldn't see the outline anymore. So you could have multiple, and then it wasn't very clear if you had them selected or not. So that was an issue, and it's not an issue anymore in 2.8, because now when you have bones that belong to a group. Let's try the pink. Now the outline draws from the outside in, so it has a bit, it still has a bright outline on top of the regular color. So that way it's a bit more, it's a bit nicer, especially when you have, for example, constraints. So let's add a bone constraint. Here, let's this one. When you have a constraint, you wouldn't see the color. In Blender 2. Well, actually in both Blenders, this is an issue that has to be solved. So basically you have to enable a theme setting for the constraints to show up in the theme, which is very lame. But basically it means that if your bone has a constraint, you would see it. Where would you see it even? Like if the bone, no, actually you couldn't. The bone color, if I remove this, yeah, this one has a constraint, but it's not showing up. So anyway, if the issue is solved in Blender 2.8 by just having the bone share both colors, share the like an outline. If we set it up in the theme, see now I'm enabling here the color constraints in this theme, and then I can see that the outline and the little balls stay with the color of my bone group, and the inside is the color of the IK, not the IK, in this case the clamp 2 constraint, bone constraint. So okay, enough of bones. I think I've been talking about for a while for bones, but they just look nicer. In Blender 2.7 you had to if you want to see through, you have to go to wireframe mode, but here you can just have it with the overlays. There will be wireframe. Before, I think most of the questions right now at this moment we are going to be, are we going to have wireframes? Yes, but not yet. They're not implemented yet, but yes, there will be, so don't freak out. And I think that's pretty much it. This should work for all kinds, even for custom shapes of bones. So if you're having a rig that has custom shapes, it should work just fine. This Armature Drawing, the 3D cursor, and now it's just some roundup about some of the features in the UI that actually I'm happy to show, because I work on them. This morning we together with William, well, I made this little proposal because until yesterday in Blender 2.8, in order to enable and disable the overlays are pretty much everything in the that is not going to be seen in the render. So for example, if we render with Eevee, there you go. So in this case, the overlay is the camera, the lamps, the armatures, and everything. So that is the overlay. And in Blender, thank you for subscribing. Before this change in Blender 2.8, you will have to open the popover and then click on the show overlays. And then you have to do that all the time because you enable that all the time. In Blender 2.7, I liked the only render option that you can just toggle. I even made an add-on, Amaranth, that you could do it with the shifts, alt shift set or something. Actually, I did it. Let's see. Amaranth. Oops, I don't have Amaranth. Huh. Okay. Because Amaranth was not in the latest release. It's gonna come back for 2.8 though. But I made an add-on where you could just toggle only render with a shortcut. And no need for that anymore, because in Blender 2.8, we're trying now is a test about having the toggle directly in the viewport up here. So you can just toggle on and off without actually having to go into the popover. And with that in mind, I proposed this change to have the solid texture material and render view and when we have matte caps or wireframes, they will be there as well. So it's like a quick way to change between these modes, which is something you can actually do in Blender 2.7. This is actually just takes 2 clicks, because here you have to change solid, and then if you want to change to something else, material, you have to click and then click again. So in this wasn't expanded in 2.7 because we didn't have space in the header. It was just too crowded. In 2.8 we have space because we moved some things to the top bar, and everything has been sorted a bit better. Yeah, this theme doesn't work well with the bright backgrounds. So yeah, I decided maybe it's a good idea to have this. Proposed it to Willem, he liked it. We did some tweaks here and there, and now everything it's a bit more clear thing, because then it's faster. You can just, once you have your scene set up, for example, you have your workbench with nice random colors and maybe shadows, and what else? You can have flat lighting, so you have 2D. Wow, this looks very anime. Huh, nice. Okay, simplify, please. Can we get rid of the hair particles for a bit? Yes, there you go. And the subdivisions. Ah, no, there's no subdivisions because the modifiers are not working. Okay, so slightly better. But once you have this set up, the more that you are going to be switching is mainly between the texture view, just for painting textures, and the render view for like a previewing, in this case Eevee. So it's I think it's a good change. Somebody was saying in the comments of this that why did I change the settings for the hair, the materials for the skin and not for the hair? Well, let's change it for the hair now. Actually, the hair of this character, he has a whole tree, but in order for Eevee to work, you only need this, actually, just the principal BSDF. Until maybe in the Summer of Code we get the hair BSDF shader. That would be awesome. Like a principal for hair. That would be fantastic. And what can we change here? Let's make it more shiny, and let's make it less rough. There you go. Conditioning, immediate conditioning. Okay, I think I'm enough with this. Enough fun with this. Let's go through some of the questions. I'm going to go all the way up to where I asked people if everything was fine. Yes. So actually a bit higher, and then I'm just gonna be answering some of your questions. Ready? So here, when you shift S, snap cursor to selected in edit mode with a single edge, the cursor should align to the edge. No more messing with the transform orientations. Yes, it should. It should, absolutely. Show us your rocket, Pablo. I don't have I don't have my rocket right here. It's in okay, I'm gonna put this to sleep here. In Twitter, Blender tweeted a picture because the rockets are here, but they are in the south of the Netherlands. They are being shipped right now, and they already also shipped a few to the Blender Institute here. So we should get one actually for maybe for next week. I can have one here in my hands. But they're so cute. They're the cutest thing. And yes, they came, and there is only like 80 something left, I think. Let's go here. 89 left. People keep buying them. That's amazing. And they're like 60 euro right now, because every month they keep going up in price, just to make it more fun. Basically, every purchase, of course, goes to the code quest. So it's a donation basically that you do, and you get a little rocket as a memory. Rockets arrived. Yes. Let's see. I'm gonna go and jump to the questions that are marked at Blender today, the ones that are in orange, because they're easier to find, to spot. So greetings from Kiev. Do you have any plans to fix limit scale constraint? When you set a minimum value, for example 0.1, you still be able to scale your armature with negative values. Oh, that's a very valid point. You should is that bug reported? It's not more of a bug, it's more like a feature, because then you would probably have another constraint to limit on the other side, I think. But yeah, it's a valid point. I am didn't hear any plans on that. Why knife doesn't have back? What do you mean? When you use a knife, the knife tool here, did I find it only by looking at the icons? Yes, I did. So when you click, you have these instructions up here, which are going to be shown in the status bar. We're going to have a status bar at the bottom of the window of Blender, which is going to be better for more instructions, for tooltips, for all kinds of things that need a bit more of text. So anyway, here you'll find so many options. Among them, you'll find, for example, C for centering, like angle constraint, or you can also find the one for cutting through. I think is set, right? Maybe it doesn't even fit in the screen, the instructions. Yeah, cut through is set. So you click on it and you cut, and it should cut through. Yes, it cut through. So this is like cut, doesn't have, or you mean doesn't have back as in doesn't have undo. It has an undo here. Control Z, Control Shift Z, Control Z, Control. I think so. Next, animation work now in Blender 2.8. Yes, animation works, but it's a it's still, let's see if I can quickly open a file, not from Spring but from the daily drips. Let's see if we can find the production files. If it's not too heavy, I'm gonna download it now. How heavy it is? 500 megs. Yeah, slightly a bit too heavy, but basically you can run the animation right now in Blender 2.8. You only have to run Blender with a specific, oh, I forgot one feature, with a specific -- enable copy on write. So this will let you basically use Blender like it's supposed to, with modifiers, for example, subserve, with let's see, mirror. Yes, with mirror. So basically you would use it how it's supposed to be, or it's meant to be used. This is all work in progress. It's going to be very unstable, even more unstable when you use this option in Blender 2.8. But the goal for next week is that this will be the default. So yes, they are working on it night and day. I forgot to show one extra feature that was added today. So it's a good thing that I'm at the Blender Cloud, because the Workbench engine now has the option to have custom lighting. So custom studio lighting. So the Workbench engine in shading, it's split in flat lighting. So it's completely flat. There's no lights here. There's no more there's no lights, basically, it's just flat colors. But not only flat, you can also have studio lighting, which is some sort of like the OpenGL lights in Blender 2.7, but with the difference that now you can actually choose from different kinds of lighting, kinds of studio lighting. So by default, Blender ships with these 3 for the time being. The first one is like the regular lighting, and then there is 2 options that, if we open a file that is more interesting, let's open the elephant, the Mr. Elephant, or I could also use the Wanderer. I like it. I like that one. But I just want to show the lighting, and in the time being, I'm going to see the HDRI library. Spoiler alert. So okay, let's go here. So this is the elephant scene by Glenn Mellenhorst, and stop calculating that, and I'm gonna change the lighting, the studio lighting, from this regular one to the second option, which is this is actually an HDR image that Blender is taking information, light information from it, and basically baking 6 lights from this setup. So as you can see, there's like a bluish in the top, and then there's like earth greenish on the bottom. This is just an example, and then there's the third one, which is a bit more brownish, and maybe if you're sculpting, it's also nice. But these are basically like some sort of HDR images that JPEG even, that Blender takes and just makes a little 6, like a box of 6 lights with it. So for example, let's we can make our own. You don't have to compile Blender to have your own. So for example, let's go and Dutch landscape pack. This, I'm just getting any picture here from the Blender cloud. So let's, for some nostalgia, let's get the Blender Institute from 2 years ago. We used to work there. Wow. Okay, I'm gonna download the 1K version, and maybe I can open the GIMP. I just need to save it as a JPEG. Blender understands JPEGs in this case. GIMP 2.10, by the way. So let's open this. Why it didn't open? Here. So I'm gonna open this, and I'm just gonna save it as a JPEG image. So let's save it here. Let's save it Blender Institute JPEG. Well, actually, I can just save it directly where the blend files are going to be read from, and that is in your home directory in config Blender. The version, in this case 2.80, and here it's in a folder that is called data files. There will be a better UI than this. Data files, and then there is a folder that's called Studio Lights, and then you will be you can put the pictures that you want. For example, in this case, let's call it institute.jpg and export it. And now if I close Blender and open it again, I should see, I haven't tested this thing. Yes, I see in the Studio Lights the second picture, the second image. And this, as you can tell, is very blue and very brown because it's taking the colors from here. So you don't have to compile Blender to use your own images as HDR lighting, basically. This is like fake HDR. It's just for better visualizing your scene, so you can, if you're sculpting, you can have a nice nice lighting, pre-lighting, and you can make your own, of course, because then the more images you can add basically anything in there in your folder. So where was it? Was it in home, Kodo, config, Blender 2.80, and then there's a folder, you have to make it. It's called data files, and then a folder is called Studio Lights, and then here you can basically drop anything. I think, let's see, let's just drop some textures from this. Is I'm just abusing the system right now. I'm just dropping textures from the girl, the Puma girl. let's see what's happened. I mean, it's almost 10 p.m. and yes, it shows up there, huh? So okay, this is very useless, but you can see the idea, right? You can see how does it work. You just need to close Blender, open it again, and it will take any of the, that's why it took a bit, because it's taking at 11 megabytes. So The resolution is not important here. 1K is more than enough because Blender is basically gonna pick points, 6 points from the picture, and it's gonna make fake lamps from it. Fake OpenGL lights, so to speak. So don't put like 4K images there because it doesn't make sense. Actually, if they're 512 or 1024, they're just completely fine. So that was my public service announcement. Continue. Let's move on. Thank you for everybody saying that it was fine. It's going to be an improvements, new things coming up on sculpting. Sculpting, well, no, unfortunately not for the cool Summer of Code. Would love to know if templates will be possible to change layout in 2 windows at once. Yes. You mean you have one Blender and then you want to make a new window, so you make a new window and then you change your workspace, and yes, your workspace actually will change things. Let's go to general here, and it would basically change depending. You can have one in one workspace in one side and one workspace in the other side, but that's basically how it works. Here's 001. They have different screens, so the screens cannot be shared, but like the old layout, but the workspace, yes. Flatty Dark, we need it. Huh. So will Blender 2.8 have fancy modern looking default theme? I don't know, do you call this a fancy modern looking theme? Of course, we're gonna update the theme at some point. Oh, by the way, another thing that I did last week, I've been coding, I've been messing with the code a little bit. Of course, it's very simple stuff. It's making the rounded corners for these. I didn't code anything new, basically. I just took the code that was already there and just made it rounded corners. But that was interesting. It's I like messing with these kind of things. Let's move on. There will be a new theme, yes. I don't know which one, if it's gonna be like this, if it's gonna be flatty light, if it's gonna be just another thing. I don't know. I don't decide. This is a community effort. But of course I would love to, because I made both of them, this flatty dark and flatty light. Will overrides allow to exclude specific objects from a lamp? No. Do you think we'll get the good old oops schematic view from 2.49 as a part of nodes everything? Not now, but eventually, yes, the nodes everything idea is still there, still valid, but it's just not a target of 2.8T. When will we get the silhouette view? It's not planned like right now, but it should come not too far from now. Flatty dark should be the default theme. It looks so good. Thank you very much. I'm happy that you guys like it, that you guys like you support flatty. Let's go flatty power. Does the pivot snap on feature change the rotation when you hold shift S? That will be later on, no, not at the time being. Is there any plan to allow sculpting directly in the viewport while EV render view? Yes, that will be possible, but not at the timing. Hey, do you know what is the target about all those commonly used settings we had in T menu? Yeah, well, some of them are going to be like shade smooth. Yeah, some of them, well, that one didn't really belong there. That is more like a special menu or more like a face. I never like, there's a pie menu that has that changes the display mode between render, wireframe, everything, and it has two options, that is shade smooth and shade flat, and I don't like that is there, because it's changing your geometry, it's changing the data. It's not just a visualization to have flat or shadow or smooth, it's actually changing your mesh, so it shouldn't be there. Hey Pablo, thanks for all the streaming. Thank you, Lucas. I just have my impression of the buttons of the UI. Are you showing don't have lines around? Look more flat than 279. Which ones? Here or not? I don't know which icons you're mentioning. There was a 3D cursor add-on that lets you snap cursors to vertices. You should add that. Yes, definitely. When border selection is enabled, the left click will still replace the 3D cursor. No, actually, when you have border selection tool, then your left click, yeah, you position it, but then you can also just drag and drop. But then you just position with a click. Otherwise, what would you do? Do you find it inconvenient to keep switching between the selection and transform tools? Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna be changing those tools, those active tools at all. I'm used to the shortcuts, so I'm gonna be working with shortcuts all the time. Of course, enabling the tools, like for example, like I was doing before, the knife tool or other tools, this is actually convenient because it means that you can use the knife multiple times, and the tools are gonna have nice widgets around, so it's gonna be actually much nicer to play with. What else? Hello from Kenya. It would be awesome if you could drag and rearrange the new tabs in the user's desired. Yes, the fact that right now it's the worst because they're aligned by if I start typing I don't know, did you know that you can control click on a tab to rename on a workspace? They are sorted alphabetically now, and that is going to change. The sorting should be manual by the user, and that is being worked on. Can you align the rotation of a model to the rotation of the 3D cursor? Not yet, but it will be added, yes. Can the cursor snap to vertices or edges? Yes, already can. If you select a vertex, Shift S, cursor to selected. But the rotation still doesn't, I think. Is there a way to change the color of the outliner lines? So I can make, for example, the even lines yellow and the odd lines blue. No, it's just the one color that it just switches value. Do you have new infos about what Jacques Lux and Lucas Stockner will work on the code quest? Yes, Jacques Lux, well, he will be here for 1 week, and well, he's the developer of animation nodes, right? So I think it's better that time is better spent by thinking how to move on with animation nodes and how to maybe make it part of Blender. But I don't know the details. Like it will just happen, I think. And Lucas, the idea is that he works on Udim support. Can you color bones for left and right, so blue and green, for example? Yes, you can use what people use, what riggers use actually, is bone groups. So basically you just name your bones, and then you add groups for each one of the sides. Do you plan to get rid of wireframe on objects meshes by using the same transparency feature from the bones? No, I don't think getting rid of wireframe is the word for it, but if we had this transparency in the objects, I think it would be pretty useful, and you would rarely need wireframe mode for that. Yeah, I think we can do without wireframe mode, but of course wireframes are gonna show up in one way or another. It's just not a priority right now. You can do pretty much everything in Blender. Of course, some things you cannot do if you have a cube inside another cube, and then you just lost the cube, basically, right? Because you can't see through, because we don't have X-ray, or we don't have this transparency feature. But the Eevee developer Clement has he's seen a paper where you can actually use some trickery to see through all of the objects at once. So it's even better than wireframe mode, because in 2.7 wireframe mode is nearly when you have a few objects, it's nearly useless. Like, what's going on in here? Like, I have no idea what's going on in here. So There are better ways to deal with seeing through objects. What's going on with baking with cycles? There's no metalness or albedo diffuse. No, that's still not implemented yet. Would it be some great for baking textures? Not for the time being that I know. But I know the cycles baking textures should be improved because since the Blender internal is no longer amongst us, there should be a replacement for the things that the internal could do and cycles or Eevee cannot do yet. Do you know anything about changes to snapping system? No. Snapping by the base point. No, actually I haven't seen it. Hi from Chile, Mono Diego. Wow, so many hearts. No, I haven't seen it. I haven't seen this. But you see, all of these hearts, this is what makes it happen. So people support your developers. Will there be ambient occlusion in the Workbench engine? Yes, there will be. Bone layer selection will remain as square buttons or it will change to something different. Bone layer selection. Oh, for the time being, it will just stay like that, but maybe eventually could use collections internally. That would be nice. Why is tool properties bar outside of the 3D view? Is Blender a simple 3D... What? Tool properties bar outside of the 3D view. Is Blender a simple 3D software, not video editing or animation software? It's just development time? I don't know what you mean basically. Why the properties bar outside of the 3D view? This one you mean? Oh, because there are settings in Blender that is Blender is not only a 3D software, right? You can do anything. You can do motion tracking. You can do video editing. So having a top bar where you can consolidate all the options is important. But you can always just click and hide it. So if you don't need it, you don't have it. You can still go back, but you don't have to see it all the time. Maybe the toolbar can be a property per workspace. Maybe that's a good idea. And oh, ouch, I scrolled and I scrolled all the way back. Let's see, I hope I didn't miss many things. Let's go back. Ouch, yes, there were so many things, so many questions. Okay, let's move on. When can I save FBX in Blender 2.8? Not for the time being that I know, but it's just a matter of the developers to update that. Any discussion to get rid of the mouse cursor pointer while you're in Paint Sculpt mode? Well, you can do that now actually in 3D in the viewport. If you don't like the 3D cursor anymore, you can just go to here to the overlays and just disable 3D cursor. So if you don't like the 3D cursor, you can just hide it. Isn't it nice? Maybe it could be hidden by default in the sculpting workspace. Is Flatty Dart a new default theme, or we stay with the ugly light gray? I hope it can be the default theme. If you like it to be the default theme, let me know in the comments after the live stream or give it a thumbs up. Let's make it happen. What is the purpose of the 3D cursor button in the toolbar? 3D cursor button in the toolbar. I don't know which one. Where will the 2.18 conference be held at? I think it's not announced yet. I can't spoil it, but it's not gonna be at the same place as always. But I think it hasn't been announced yet. I don't know. I don't want to mess it up. I think Blender Twitter, Blender Conf. Save the date. Yes, just the date, not the place. Okay, still hasn't been announced, but it's gonna be awesome. It's a much bigger place, so there will be more room for everyone. Okay, it would be great to be able to transform the 3D cursor directly in the viewport. Yeah, that would be nice. One question, Blender today. I couldn't find a way to get the material texture view on live render. You can, well, you can see textures. The material view if you're in workbench. Or if you're in cycles, you have the material. There you go. In cycles, you have material view and then render view. Let's see. Custom Studio Lighting supports JPEGs and HDR files. Really? So I could just not converted the file. Huh. Thank you, Jeroen Wacker. He is the developer of the Workbench engine. He actually implemented the custom studio lighting. So thank you for hanging out here live. We have a star. It's awesome. When you add some point with knife, you can back or undo your point. No. What is your Blender theme? Flatty dark. Will there be any in the viewport editable option motion paths like in Maya? I don't know how Maya does it, but the motion paths will be there will be work going on in the upcoming weeks, months. So stay tuned for that. And 2.8 is gonna be amazing. Yes, it is the icing on the cake. Yes, awesome. I think I'm gonna be wrapping up with the questions. Will we be able to have custom matcaps from custom images? Eventually. Overrides can hide objects to cast shadows in the workbench. Interesting. Is it possible to hide the top bar? Yes, you can. Just drag and drop, click and drag from the edge. Are you guys aware of the Armory game engine? Yes, it's an awesome game engine that it's using EVE, I think even. Armory3D.org. Yes, we are aware of that. Sugamasta, hola. Is there some time and space in the new office for random artists to drop by and do some 2.80 proof of concepts? Get in touch. Any news about animation nodes? You mentioned about it last live stream. Yeah, no news since then. Will there be any in the view? But if you need animation nodes, you can just go to graphical.org. There's downloads there for the nodes, animation node here. Will there be any in the viewport editable motion paths? Yeah, we already answered that. It's possible to change the specularity glossiness values of the workbench materials, not for the time being. Why is the big release not called 3.0? Because Blender 3.0 is going to be even bigger. Can we expect performance improvements for polygon heavy scenarios like sculpting? Well, it's gonna work better because it's basically using a newer OpenGL, so it's gonna work better in that regard. Is the new UI adaptable to multiple screens? Yes, of course. We all use multiple screens, and Blender 2.7 it was possible, so now it's still be possible. Any chance to see an undo improvements? Are you implementing a kind of Maya hypergraph? I don't know Maya, sorry. Will we get cycles back in 2.8? What? Cycles doesn't go anywhere. Cycles is the best of the best. Eevee doesn't, I mean, Eevee is great, but it's real time. Cycles is where the heavy things going on, where you can have the most amazing looking everything. When people compare, like, I think with this I'm gonna wrap up because it's already late, but wow, it got dark already. Yes, it was much lighter. So when people say when when the Blender game engine was removed, and then when the Blender internal was removed, people were saying, well, what's gonna happen with cycles? They're gonna remove cycles because Eevee is taking over. And no, it's not. Eevee is real time. It's focused on fast, good looking but fast graphics, like games. Like, it has to look good, it has to have a nice preview, it has to see your textures. If you're painting a normal map, you should see fast the layers of your normal maps and your shaders, and everything has to look amazing. The smoke and everything has to look great, but still real time. It has to be fast for you to work in. If you're doing layout, for example, where you have to have some depth of field, some motion blur, Eevee should be able to do that, but with an approximation, right? It shouldn't be one-on-one what you're going to see. Then for high quality graphics, like the best you can make, cycles is the tool to use. So that's when people compare. Like, compare the best looking video game nowadays in the market with the best, with Coco from Pixar, or The Good Dinosaur. Like, it's just two different worlds. One is real time, one is offline, with 20 hours per frame, 500 hours per frame. They're crazy. The times they manage is crazy. Anyway, I think I'm gonna be wrapping this up. It's been over an hour, but it was so much fun to hang out with everybody right here. I had a blast. I hope you had too. It's been fantastic. I think next week we're gonna have even more stuff, maybe some NPR. Yes, that would be pretty cool. If you so I think during the week there will be some updates. If you have a file that you would like to share that is pretty neat and is showing off features, just let me know and I can show it out here, of course giving credit. But it's always fun to show other artists. And also, if you're willing to share it as a Creative Commons, then it can be added to the website of Blender itself for other people to use. Blender.org, everything is shared as Creative Commons. So that's it for this week. I had a great time. I hope you had too. So I think without further ado, I'm gonna close up with the same as always, the song that goes with everything. Watch out your headphones. Yes, that's it. Another week. I will see you all next week. Bye bye.